Welcome back to the Tiny French Bacon. I'm Nicole and today is baklava.
You ready? Energize.
I'm gonna have to edit this out.
You can do it. You're so impressive. You're such a good baker. We're gonna go on a walk, okay?
Make banana bread.
You can make a banana phyllo if you want. A little bit better.
Yes.
Slightly degrumbed.
It's Pie Week Showstopper where I will not make a pie.
Welcome to your Showstopper for Pie Week. Today we would like you to make a phyllo pastry pie. Now you can make it sweet or savory, but it must be big and impressive, and you must make the pastry from scratch. You have 4 hours. Ready, set, bake.
Baklava is not a pie.
It's a phyllo pastry pie.
No, it's not. Doesn't count.
It's a what?
Doesn't count.
So
Pie.
are you scrapping this and going off-road to make banana bread?
I'm making banana pudding pie. It's a pie. So, hazelnut pistachio baklava. I don't like baklava and I don't think anyone should make phyllo dough at home ever. But here we go. I attempted baklava once this week and it was a total disaster, so I decided to just dump all my ingredients in the food processor with the dough hook, since I didn't really know what consistency I was looking for. The ingredients is just flour, a little bit of sugar, salt and some olive oil, some room temperature water, blitz it together until it kind of looks like a supple ball of dough. Any dough is going to be hard and sticky to work with, especially if it has no cold butter, so wrap it up and put it in the fridge. And that is done. Time for the sugar syrup that bathes the baklava. It's what gives all of the sweetness of the baklava and most of the flavor that's not from the nuts. I went with a lemon and almond sugar syrup, so I'm just mixing in water, an enormous amount of sugar, a little bit of almond extract, a little bit of honey, just about a squeeze, and some lemon juice. Time for the filling. I am mixing almond, hazelnut and pistachios. The traditional baklava is using only almond and walnuts, however Theodore is allergic to walnuts. So I went a little off base, and pistachio and hazelnuts are my favorite nuts. So I went with those, trying to make a baklava that I will like. It does taste wonderful, and I added about a teaspoon of cinnamon to the mix as well. Here is my template on how I will cut my baklava into small pieces. The cutting is most of the decoration of this intricate pastry, so you really want to make something as pretty as possible. I went with a triangle pattern from a crisscross pattern. It makes small pieces, but baklava is very rich and dense, so you really don't want to have a big piece of it. I attempted to see if my syrup was perfectly sticky and the viscosity was right, and it wasn't. So don't hesitate to put it back on the stove. It took me a good half an hour to completely reduce my syrup to have the desired syrupy stickiness. And here it's way more viscous and it smells wonderful, I have to say. The honey and the lemon just are enticing. Time to melt our butter. There is so much butter. This butter will be layered between our sheets of phyllo dough. I recommend you melting it in a pot, not in the microwave where it could explode. I went in and buttered my tin before I put it in the fridge to make sure it was ready when the time came. Do not make phyllo dough at home. It is time consuming. It is more expensive than the one that you buy at the store. I checked, the pre-made one is $5.50 and you don't have to go through the trouble of making it. Also, you will not be as skilled as a machine in rolling it as thin as possible. But if you really want to try and make it at home or the store was out for some reason, here's how you make it. I decided to divide my dough in small amounts and roll each sheet as thin as possible. You can also, if you want, roll out your whole dough with a broomstick handle and roll that into one giant thin sheet and layer that sheet out. I think that the individual sheets is more time consuming but easier to handle. Once you have the sheet of phyllo dough completely see-through and close to ripping, just really at the limit, roll it up and put it in the fridge. I'll show you once more with another little bundle of dough. I start by flattening it with my fingers, using cornstarch and the wax paper to make it not stick. And I flip it back and forth, making sure that the gluten is relaxed until I have both the transparency that I want the light to go through it, and also I am close to the size of my pan. In the background you can see that I am watching The Tiger King and I on Netflix. That was fun. So are you more of a Carol Baskin, a Joe Exotic? Which one? Personally, I'm a big fan of Saf. Getting your arms ripped out by a tiger, that's badass. This is how much I don't like phyllo pastry. I don't want to talk about it. So roll out all of your little pieces into cigars, keep it in the fridge until you're done. Once you're done, you're gonna put about 5 to 6 sheets at the bottom, layering with the melted butter between every sheet. And you see some of the sheets have a hole in them, and that's totally fine. Since we're layering, it's not gonna be a problem, especially at the bottom. No one can see it. As long as you have one continuous amount of dough layered by butter, it's gonna be okay. Do try to put enough butter on the side because it has a tendency to pull in the middle. Then we add our nut and cinnamon mixture, making sure it is even and flat before we layer our 6 more layers on top. And those layers were not cold enough, so they were ripping apart when I was trying to separate them, and I was totally fine. As long as you have a couple of nice even sheets to put at the top to make sure it looks clean, the ones that are in the middle of your sandwich really don't matter. As long as you put the butter and you have a nice one at the end, it's totally fine. I layered the nice one just completely over the edge and I used scissors to trim it. And here I am not completely cutting my pattern yet, I am just scoring the dough and putting the whole baklava in the fridge. I want the butter to harden to be able to slice through it before I bake everything. If you try to make your decorative pattern after baking, your phyllo dough will shatter and it won't look good. So once it's very cold, I'm using a knife and cutting through the whole baklava with my decorative pattern. I was trying to be careful. This is a non-stick pan. I love those Gold Touch from Williams Sonoma pans, and I didn't want to scratch it. I did scratch a bit on the side. It's not too bad, but just be careful. If you have a ceramic or a glass pan, that would be even better. I was a little bit worried about crisping on the bottom layers. That's why metal is better conduction of heat. I wanted to play it safe, but it was not necessary. And then you put it in the oven at 375 for an hour, and we're done. So baklava is pretty simple. 3 elements: the pastry, the filling, and the syrup. After an hour in the oven, when it's still hot and it looks golden brown at the top, it will look really brown at the bottom. So don't push it too far. You can pull in your syrup, and I actually only used about 2/3 of the syrup at most, and it was still plenty sweet. We could really taste the honey, the floral notes, and the lemon. So There's no need to overdo it on this one. It's gonna be a rich dessert. Now we're done with the baklava. You can use the syrup like we did in cocktails, for instance, or on top of pancakes. I topped everything with a little bit of ground pistachio that I blitzed while it was in the oven, just to add a little bit of green color. So it looks a little bit fancy on the pictures. And 4 hours is plenty of time to do your whole baklava. I was done in 3 hours and a half. And it's time for the judging. Same as in the past couple of weeks, the judges are gonna be Theodore and myself, since we can't have people over. Here's what the baklava looks like. From the sides, the little pieces, it was very crunchy, even with the additions of the syrup, and the pieces did hold together, so that was great. We are sharing a small piece since it is so decadent. Theodore is looking at the architecture of the whole dessert, really impressed that everything was holding together, since there is nothing that really keep the nuts together but for the syrup. And once you can pick it up with your fingers, I was very happy with that. And that's a baklava. I don't personally enjoy baklava. I find it too sweet. But I did like the texture of the phyllo dough that I tried by itself. I was very proud to have made phyllo dough from scratch. Will honestly never do it again. But that's the whole point of this challenge, is for me to push myself a little bit out of my comfort zone. So I made baklava, and it was a tasty one. Pretty standard. I personally think not showstopper worthy. That's why I gave myself the grade of 7.5 out of 9. Theodore, however, thought that I definitely fit the brief. It might have been a little more grand with decorations, but he gave me the grade of 8 out of 9. So pretty decent scores for a dessert I'm never doing ever again. Thanks in particular to Theodore, who cheered me on the whole time. I think he likes baklava. You can find all of the ingredient amount and recipe on Tiny French Bacon, and follow my adventures on Tiny French Bacon on Instagram.
Very cool. It even comes to me so I don't have to bend down for scratches.
I hope that everybody's staying safe, and thanks for watching. Bye!